The rise of the individual.
The most difficult thing is to know what we do know, and what we do not know. Therefore, desiring to know anything, we shall before all else determine what we accept as given, and what is demanding definition and proof, that is, determine what we already know, and what we wish to know.
Man's greatest enigma is finding the answer to the question, what is man? The Western philosophical tradition has attempted in countless ways to formulate an absolute answer to this, and similar questions. Ample attempts notwithstanding, metaphysical questions of such scope continue to preoccupy man's thinking. In the course of the 19th century, the status of truth from an immutable objective ideal slowly but surely begins to shift toward the subject's world of life. Schopenhauer is one of the first Western philosophers that introduces Buddhist influences into Western thought in his magnus opus, The World as Will and Representation. He places the inevitable suffering of the individual in the perspective of a heroic metaphysics, in which music plays the leading role as the voice of the will of the Absolute. Kierkegaard questions the sincerity of the individual's religious experience, which seems to fit into the rigid religiosity of his time like a meek sheep. Freud establishes psychoanalytic hypotheses about origins of neuroses, and under the influence of mystical doctrines, such as Blavatsky's theosophy and Rudolf Steiner's anthroposophy, interest in the subjective point of view of the individual grows in the 19th century. In this stream of development, early in 1915, Ouspensky met his teacher Gurdjieff and was introduced to a system he would later call the Fourth Way. Although Gurdjieff only expresses in vague terms about the origin of the system, it is clear to Ouspensky, from the outset, that this is the special knowledge he had been seeking for so long. But how should the origins of the system such as the Fourth Way be understood within the context of traditional Western thought? Does the thinking of the Fourth Way fall under the category of philosophy, mysticism, religion, or esotericism? The predicate esotericism has a not too high status with many academically trained scholars. It involves the hidden, the inner and therefore inaccessible to a third-person perspective. A scientific analysis of an esoteric system thus seems ruled out. But is this conclusion correct? What remains of this pejorative if we put the system of the Fourth Way along the yardstick of that Western philosophical tradition? Were thinkers such as Ouspensky and Gurdjieff really little more than a few dissolute spiritual celestialists whom we should classify as hopelessly outdated, or is it precisely the philosophical academic who would be wise to leave the judgment on the quality of such thinking to the court of critical reason? In the remainder of this video series we will focus further on these questions in order to answer the question of whether the system of the Fourth Way deserves a mature place in the canon of Western philosophy.